Hello, beautiful people. I'm super excited. But can we talk about how when I go to record these videos, the sun seems to go away and the clouds come so that it can rain, and then it's like meh as far as lighting goes. Oh well, what can you do? I cannot control the weather, so we're going to continue with this video. In today's video, we are going to be talking about controlling what you can control, specifically with an emphasis on our mindset. And I am super excited about it because I think mindset and mental development is awesome. Okay, let's get into it, shall we? All right, so first things first, when it comes to mindset, you know what? Let me rewind. I was gonna go one direction, but I'm gonna go the other direction and make sure that everybody can keep up, because I think I was just gonna jump in, but I want to make sure we all start from the same place. So when it comes to our mindset, how we think, what we think about, what we focus on, that is so important because thoughts are things, okay? We as human beings have an incredible gift and blessing, and that is what we think about, we have the power to turn into reality. With that being said, when it comes to our mindset, something that is really important is that we have vision. The Bible says for a lack of vision, people perish. Y'all, you know what? That is not true. Give me a moment. Okay, I was right. The thing is, I read the Bible, I love the Bible, but I'm not one of those people that can quote things like, oh, in this place, on this verse, in this chapter, in this verse, I know exactly what it says. I just remember, or I know exactly where it is and what it says. I just remember what it says. But the Bible does say, it is in Proverbs, for a lack of vision, my people perish. And the point is, the reason I bring that up is because when we as human beings don't have vision for our life, for our family, for our community, for our country, we'll perish when we don't know where we're going, okay? So knowing and understanding that thoughts are things and that those thoughts we can turn into reality. When we see that and we follow that process, that is us having vision, okay? And that's so cool because we can do it with anything in our life, right? We can do it with, the kind of job that we want to have. We can have with the place we want to live, the places that we want to travel, the people we want to hang out with, the things that we want to do with our life. When we really think about those things, we focus on them, and then we follow it with action, we turn that vision into reality. And that's huge. I think if we don't have vision, like I said, the Bible says people perish. I think you put yourself at a disadvantage. You just come to terms with whatever is and you accept whatever happens. And you could live that life. You could. It's an option. But it wouldn't be a life that is full, right? It would just be the life that you're like, it is what it is. Or you can live a life of purpose and of fulfillment. That's just my 2 cents. The next thing that we need when it comes to being able to control our mentality, one thing that we need to understand is that our mindset is going to either help us in this journey or it's going to hinder us. And what I mean by that is what we repeat to ourselves over and over and over again eventually becomes what we believe, okay? And so a really good example of this are athletes. So athletes, especially Olympic athletes, they train hard, really hard. They train day in, day out. They are constantly in and out, not only of practice, but also in the gym. They restrict how what they eat and what they consume, because it will affect how their body will perform. And all of those things come down to lifestyle, right? They're choosing a specific lifestyle so that they can accomplish their goal and be an Olympian. We see this also with other athletes. But the beginning stages of that comes down to their mindset. If they are not willing to work hard and push the boundaries, the limits of what they think they can accomplish, they wouldn't even make it to the Olympics, right? Because what happens is our mind is designed to protect us, right? We have, I think they call it the lizard brain. And pretty much this is the kind of like primitive brain that has kept human beings alive. And so when things are either too difficult, too scary, or too challenging, we tend to like pull away from them. And in fact, we can go much further. And this has been proven time and time again. Like a really good example is the 4-minute mile. People were like, no one can run a mile in under 4 minutes. It can never be done. It's impossible, blah, blah, blah. And then lo and behold, once someone broke that belief, that mindset boundary, and they were like, actually, I can run a 4-minute mile, then people started doing it around the world, and not only beat the 4 minutes, but now they were coming in faster and faster and faster, because our mind was like, now we know it's possible. And so when I say our mindset will either help us or it will hinder us, what I mean is when we think we can only go so far, if our belief system is negative, like, oh, I can only go this far, we can't do it again, this is the first and the last time, if it is more of a negative pattern, it's going to hinder us. However, if we repeat things positively and we affirm and we push and we tell ourselves, I can do this, one more rep, this is the first time, but I can do it again, I can do it again, I can try again, someone else is doing this, I just have to figure out how to do it, or I'm gonna be the first person to do this. All of these positive affirmations, these positive things are going to allow our mind to go further than what it thinks it can do. And when it comes to athletes, which is why I brought them up as an example, is because the biggest obstacle that most athletes and people in general have when it comes to what we're capable of doing physically is our mind, because our body can go like 40 times further than what we think we're capable of doing, which is a lot, like, right? Let alone if you train. So if you start here and you think you can only get here, but you can actually get here, that's significant. And once you train to get here, then you think you can get here, but in reality, you can get here. You're making leaps and bounds. That's just with things that are physical, right? Let alone in other areas of our life. So just know that where you are mentally, whether it's positive or negative, whether you're an optimistic person or a pessimistic person, how you approach each situation in your life and the perspective you have will either help you or hinder you. All right, next. Our mindset has physical effects on our body, which is huge. I think it is so amazing and so empowering. So let me start with this, right? We have things like stress, anxiety, and depression, and that is running rampant right now, at least here in the States at this moment in time. I think those three things are so high because everyone is like freaking out. I think really around the world. I'm not around the world, but I'm currently in the States, so I'll speak for the States themselves. But the energy and what you're feeling is that a lot of people are scared. They are terrified and afraid. Because of that fear is causing stress, that stress is causing anxiety, and that anxiety is causing people to feel depressed and not know what to do, right? And when that happens for a long period of time, which it's been a long period of time that we've been dealing with this virus and other stuff, that it starts to have physical effects on the body. We know that those three things often lead to heart disease, they lead to lung disease, thyroid problems, cancer, they lead to other sicknesses. Your immune system drops down, so it's not able to really do what it needs to do to protect you from being sick, which means you're more susceptible to all sorts of stuff, especially this crazy virus, right? Like all of this, it's connected. On the flip side, when we choose to, and I say choose because it is a practice, it's something that we have to be mindful of and to work on every day. But when we choose to operate in love, joy, peace, and happiness, that also has a positive effect on our body. Those emotions they increase our immune system. They allow for us to have better sleep, which also helps our immune system. All of those emotions decrease depression, they decrease anxiety, they decrease stress, which means that it starts to decrease and eliminate the chances of us getting those other diseases. I'm not saying that if you have issues, like if you have cancer or if you have lung disease and you're like, well, I'm just going to choose to be happy, that's going to get rid of it. It will help get rid of it, but that may not be the end all be all. I just want that to be noted, but it will help you. Okay. So those are the 3 big reasons that I think our mind is extremely powerful, and why it's important for us to be mindful and to focus on our mindset and to train our mindset. All right, in my previous video, I talked about 4 things that we can mentally control. So the first one is how we speak to ourselves, the thoughts we think, the things we talk about, and the things that we listen to and also watch, right? The things that we bring into our mind. So how do we control these things, right? How do we control our mindset? How do we control these 4 things? Before I go into how we control them, I want you guys to understand that first, we as human beings are always growing, okay? Especially mentally. We see it with babies and children. And for whatever reason, I feel like adults kind of just stop, but we have the opportunity to grow and to expand mentally. And that is so important, especially when it comes to taking control over our mindset. The second thing is that it's going to take time to happen. And the reason it's going to take time for us to shift our mindset is because for a long period of time, we have been thinking in one direction, okay? So for example, I'll use myself. I actually used to be really depressed because I had a lot of health issues when I was younger, and it was just such a struggle. And part of that, it was a struggle, guys. It was ridiculous. However, when I decided that I wanted something more and I was like, I want to actually live life, it was a challenge because of how my mindset was. My mindset was, there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of limited beliefs of what I can't do. I mean, I would tell myself, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't go there. I could die from this, I could die from that. I could, I was really like a bubble girl. And so everything in my life was done to keep me alive, but it kept me kind of caged, right? Mentally, it kept me caged. And so when I decided to make that transition, I had to start asking myself different questions and start telling myself different things so that I could get out of that. And it took a lot of time. And I say a lot of time, but for some things, it took me a year of doing different things and having to retrain my mind instead of saying, let me think of a really good example, because I think that's the best. Okay, here's one. So, because I was always sick and I had really bad skin and stuff like that, I was very insecure. I didn't think that I was very pretty, let alone beautiful. My sisters are freaking gorgeous. And so when I was out with them, I was like, oh my God, I'm so the ugly duckling. And I was so insecure in that area. And so it probably took me, but keep in mind, I'd been telling myself that I was not pretty, that I was ugly, that I was just not worth the attention of people because I wasn't pretty. I know that sounds super shallow, but that's where I was in my life. But I'd been telling myself that since I was little, and it wasn't necessarily consciously done. A lot of it was unconsciously done. And so when I was 26, so we'll give or take, right? 18 to 20 years, I'd been telling myself that I wasn't pretty, that I wasn't worthy, that I was the ugly sister, that people didn't like me because I was ugly, crazy. But for 18 to 20 years, I'd been telling myself this. And then when I was 26, I was like, this sucks. So I decided to change it. And it took me probably 3 years, which sounds like a really long time, right? Of telling myself like, actually I am really pretty, and I am worthy, and I'm not ugly, and actually my sisters and I are all actually super gorgeous, and we're different, but we all are pretty. And people like me because I'm actually pretty on the inside and on the outside, right? Like, I had to not only rewire my brain, and I say 3 years, but the first time, like the first long while, I didn't believe it, but I kept telling myself. Then when I started to believe it, I had to actually embody it, and that was also a process. And so that's what I want you guys to know is, I don't think whatever you are going to choose to embark upon on your mental journey, it may not take you 3 years, but I'm telling you, I had 18 to 20 years of a negative belief that I had to unravel and call out and be like, that's a lie, and then choose to believe something different. And for me, it took that long. It may not take that long for everyone else. It may not, whatever that mental block is, or whatever that belief is, it may not take you 3 years. It could take you 6 months. It could take you 2 weeks, right? Whatever it is, just know it's going to take a certain amount of time. But once you get there, it's fire. That's what I'm going to say. All right, let's get into it. So, how do we control these things? Let's start with how we speak to ourselves. First off, to control these things, to have an effect, how we control or how we talk to ourselves, I would suggest affirmations. Okay, so I would suggest writing down a list of characteristics and traits that you do like about yourself, or traits that you want to embody, and then say those traits to yourself in the morning for sure when you get up. Instead of grabbing your phone to check Facebook and Instagram, grab your phone and tell yourself that you are these characteristics, right? Like, mine, I am smart, I am beautiful, I'm captivating, I'm gorgeous, I'm graceful, I'm elegant, I'm amazing, I'm strong, I'm healthy. Like, those were some of the affirmations that I had to tell myself on my journey, right? So it's interesting they're still in here. It's great that they're still in there because they're subconscious, and like, once you have them, once you've rewired it, it will stay. That's like my favorite part. The next thing that I would suggest is, I suggest writing down your affirmations at least once a day, if not multiple times a day, if you can. And the reason I say that is because affirmations are amazing, but when we write things down, it slows our brain down and it allows for us to focus in on that one thing, and that's really important. Okay. Next, repetition. Like I mentioned before, saying the affirmations multiple times throughout the day is very helpful. And when you do that, a lot of times those affirmations will become your default. So if you're in a situation where you're stressed, if you're in a situation where you're feeling very emotional, the more that you've done these affirmations and this repetition, that will come up and kind of help you through that process, which is awesome. How do we control the things that we think? This is very interesting. So the first thing that I would suggest is to pay attention to your thoughts. We have like a crazy number of thoughts per day. I have heard different numbers from different people. Some people have said we have over 70 million thoughts a day. Some people have said that we have over 70 million thoughts in a day. That's a crazy amount of thoughts. And the thoughts that we have, they come and they go so fast, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, I need to get a blue pen, or I need to make sure to remember to lock my door or turn off my coffee maker, or call my mom, right? Like, those little thoughts. Then we have thoughts that we're very focused on and very intentional with. But the point is, we have a lot of thoughts throughout the day. Now, I don't know if it's 7 or 70 million, but that's still a lot of thoughts. You guys know what I'm talking about? The point is, the first thing I think we need to do to control our thoughts, if you will, are to pay attention to them. That's the biggest thing, is just pay attention to what you're thinking about. And again, some of the thoughts that we have can be like, oh, I need a blue pen, or I should go buy Post-its, right? But a lot of the thoughts that we have to do with ourself. And are those thoughts serving you, or are they harming you? And that's what we want to focus on. And it's not necessarily judging them or wanting to stop them. It's just observing them and saying, wow, like I actually think a lot of negative thoughts in a day, and acknowledging what's happening and then choosing to do something about it. Which brings me to my next thing. After you've observed your thoughts for a while, you've decided, hey, I want to change thoughts in this area or about this subject or this thing, then that goes back to, I would say, go back to like affirmations and envisioning what it is that you want for your life in that particular area. And then once you've done that, I think it's really important that once you have your affirmations and you're saying them and you're retraining your mind is being rewired. I think that it is also really important that as you continue to pay attention to your thoughts, when you notice that you have a negative thought pattern, like stream, like there's a lot of negative thoughts going, that you interrupt that baby super quick. Okay, so for me, I had like a phrase that I would pretty much say. So I don't believe in cussing, but it was pretty close to it. I'd be like, son of a biscuit, or scallywags, which just something like, it's super random. It didn't make any sense in the context of my life whatsoever, but I would shout it out loud, and I would say it out loud. Depends on the place where you are. And I did that because then I knew, like, okay, I'm having a stream of negative thoughts that needs to stop. And on top of that, I now need to replace it with a stream of positive thoughts. And in its place, I would start saying my affirmations that I had been working on. Or I would really start to pray, which is, by the way, can we talk? We'll get to that one in another video, but prayer is bomb.com. That's all I'm going to say about that. And the reason I say, affirmations are really good, but I also say prayer because when you connect with God, when you understand how God sees you and how valuable you are, holy moly, like, you are an amazing human being. There's not ever going to be another person like you in this world. You are completely unique and offer something to this world that no one else can. Like, no one else could ever do what you're doing in your life. And that is so amazing and incredible and mind-blowing. And that, to me, when you get that like God sees you in that way and you're like, hey, look, let's have a conversation, God, and he reaffirms those things to you, fire. That's what I'm gonna say. Moving on. All right. The next way that we're able to control the thoughts that we think are writing down the things that we're grateful for. And so let me just say this. We're never really going to be able to control every single thought that we think. And that's not our goal. The goal is to retrain our mind to serve us in the life that we want to live, and being able to do the things that we want to do, right? And so instead of having a negative or a pessimistic viewpoint when it comes to like traveling or being able to start a new career, we want to have more of a positive and optimistic outlook so that we can, like I mentioned before, our brain thinks we can go this far, but in reality, we can actually go this far. We want to go this far, and it's much easier to go this far when we're positive and optimistic, okay? It's not so much about controlling every thought, but it's about training our mind to serve us in the long run. All right, and that brings me back to gratitude, which I talked about. Gratitude is really important because that helps us focus on, like, literally, it's us focusing on the things that we're grateful for. It's us paying attention to what's around us instead of us focusing on our negative thoughts. So that it's really that simple. And it's something we can control. It's something that we can say like, wow, like, I'm so grateful for my glasses so I can see, because y'all, without them, it's a struggle, right? But I have glasses, yay. And I'm so grateful that I have this car to record in and the lighting's not that bad. And it gives us perspective to see different things in a positive light, which helps our brain rewire for more positivity. Do you guys get what I'm saying? I hope you understand what I'm saying. Okay, moving on. Being mindful and selective with the things we talk about. So here's the deal. This obviously conversations that we have these with other people, right? And so when we're with a group of people, or maybe we're with an individual, when there are topics that come up that are not serving us, that are not positive, that are damaging, we need to either let that person know, like, hey, this isn't really something I want to talk about, or we need to remove ourselves from that conversation. We're choosing to be selective about the things that we talk about. We can also change the subject. That's really important. But first thing is first, we need to be mindful of it. And we need to be selective. We have to choose individually, ourselves. We don't have to worry about the other person, but we have to choose what we're going to engage in. The second thing, like I said, is we can change the subject, or let people know that we don't want to discuss those things. And these things are really small, but often very difficult because it involves other people. But when we do this for ourselves, it will actually help us in the long run. And these are things that we can control. We literally can just say, like, we can either choose not to say anything, we can choose to change the subject, or we can let people know ahead of time, like, I'm not going to be talking about that. And that's it. And that's really good when it comes to things like gossip or like really negative and harmful news. Like if that's all people talk about, like, yeah, I don't watch the news, so I don't want to talk about that, right? Or I'm not okay with this and I'd really like not to talk about this. Or this really bothers me, not in a good way, and I'm not okay talking about this. And that's totally okay to say to people. That's just what I think. Next, how do we control the things that come into our mind, right? So these things come in through our eyes and our ears. When I was younger, people would always, I say people, it was like old people, and now that I'm in my 30s, I'm like, these people are not old. But when older people would tell me, like, be mindful of like what goes in your eye and your ear gate, and I'm like, okay, whatever. What they were really saying is like, be mindful and protective of your mind. And so the ways that we can do this are being careful and mindful of the music that we listen to, the conversations that we have, the things that we read. Like, reading is so powerful, you guys. It's amazing. But if we're only reading things that are negative, that are dark, that are kind of that focus on like one area. So like if you read a whole lot about war, you might find yourself like kind of aggressive. It's not a bad thing. It's just that you're reading a lot about war, right? If you're reading a lot about like if you're a psychologist and you're going to school and you're having to read a lot of case studies about like different psychological behaviors, those things are going to have an effect on you mentally. And so it's being mindful. So if you're reading a lot of things that are negative, please replace them with things that are positive. Read a lot of positive things, a lot of things that are going to affirm you, affirm the vision that you have for your life, where you're going, what you're doing, the people that you're hanging around with. Read those things to kind of to help balance out things that you might consume that are negative. All right, that's all that I have. I hope you guys found this video very helpful. I know it's really long, but again, my goal is to help you guys and help you be able to control what you can control. And just know that like in the midst of this craziness and chaos that literally the entire world is feeling right now, that one, you're not alone, and two, there is something that you can do about it. And that comes down to you, yourself, and you. Normally it's like me, myself, and I, and I'm like, nope, but just you, yourself, and you. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys in the next video next week. Bye-bye.